Hello everyone, I'm Vassilis and this is V Lambda Studio. For many students, the crit can be a very intimidating process of evaluation, not just for the ones presenting, but also for those in the audience when they're asked to contribute their own feedback. Nobody wants to sound unpleasant. In this video and the next, I will show you how you can express your opinion and share your ideas in a friendly and constructive way, and turn the crit into a vivid conversation. You will see the benefit when it's your turn to present your work and receive feedback. I will show you how to be critical in the crit. If you're thinking of studying architecture, design or fine arts, the crit is part of your training and education, where you present your work to a panel of critics, comprised by your teachers and sometimes guest practitioners, and of course some of your course mates, and after finishing your presentation, you receive feedback. For those of you that are students of any of these disciplines and you've had your crit or more, I know. I hope you're still watching, despite the pain. There are two principal learning objectives in a crit. We learn to communicate an idea, and we also learn to be critical on an idea. We will discuss how to communicate an idea in a different video. So in this video, we will focus on how to be critical on an idea in the form of oral feedback. The critics and your course mates are part in this process by offering their opinion. So in a crit, oral feedback can be an example of how to be critical on someone's work. Why is this skill so important in art and design education? Well, first of all, when we create, that someone is us. We need to be critical on our own process of creation, when we're trying to decide on what works and what doesn't. For example, let's just say I've worked on several iterations of a small detail. Which one should I choose? Should I straight away choose the one that I think works better? Should I perhaps make use of some aspect from one iteration and maybe combine it with some other aspect of a different iteration and make something completely new? Why is the new iteration any better to our first choice? Decisions like these are hard to make, and we need to be critical when creating. Except for learning to facilitate that dialogue we have with ourselves when we create, in a crit, we practice exactly the same skill, but in a dialogue with others. We are now in a social context, which obviously requires certain skills. We need to be able to express our opinion in a way that is constructive and helpful for the person receiving it, without being rude, which is exactly what we look for when we ask for feedback from others. You very well understand then how essential this skill is in the industry, when you constantly exchange opinions and ideas with your colleagues and clients. In my opinion, this is a skill that goes beyond your training as a designer, artist or architect. This is a skill for life, the life you have with your friends, your family, the family you may decide to make in the future. Whoever you're with, in any context, professional, social or private, you need to be able to think for yourself and know how to express your thoughts. I have given you some reasons why this skill is fundamental in so many different aspects of your life. Let's see now how we can develop it through the context of the crit. We know for a fact that repetition is the mother of learning. Surely then, if students actively become part of the feedback process and they're more and more involved into expressing their opinion, won't they learn to become better at it? Critics welcome contributions from students looking at presentations with them. They will ask them their opinion and try to involve them in the process. Usually participation is really low from very few students, especially in undergraduate years. So typically the main contribution to feedback comes from the critics, where they talk and the students listen and keep notes. I understand that for most of you, your previous educational experience had you sitting behind a desk and listening to your teachers, and that you were not exposed to a condition similar to a crit. So it is very reasonable not knowing how exactly to get involved in it, and no one should blame you for this. Although listening is essential in a conversation, allow people to express themselves, pay attention to them. Being in a crit as a listener only makes the event passive, which is the opposite of active. If there is no action, there is no interaction. In this way, we don't practice exchanging our thoughts, so then we lose the opportunity to learn from the process and become better at it. There are two main reasons that explain this condition. I believe it is important to understand them first in order to slowly overcome them and become more active in the practice of oral feedback in a crit. First of all, the problem begins with the way the word criticism is commonly understood. Usually, when hearing the word criticism, we think of something negative, that it is about finding faults and mistakes and focusing only on that. The crit, which is short for critique, is criticism on someone's work. Nowadays, more and more schools refer to the crit as review. Sounds less negative. Review. Let's have another look instead of criticism. Let's clarify this once and for good and try to change this perception we have of it. Crit or critique or criticism or review, they all mean one and the same thing. It's someone's subjective view on both positive and negative aspects, a well-rounded view, not just positive or just negative. So the persons receiving feedback are assisted in seeing their work from as many angles as possible and understand exactly what they do well and what they do not, so they keep improving both. When we want to buy something on the internet, we read the reviews. We want to go to a restaurant or a hotel, we read the reviews. Someone's criticism, a critique on a subject. Deep down then, we're not afraid or intimidated by criticism or review, but by negative criticism or negative review. No matter how we call it, we just want it to be positive. So this is one of the reasons why students in the audience avoid participation. But when they do participate, their comments are most probably positive, in which case you will hear a student commenting by saying something like, "I really like this here," or "I love what you've done there." Saying something negative or perhaps make a more difficult question is unthinkable, because it will make you look like a despicable person and ruin your social life in the school forever. We all know then that oral feedback is both positive and negative criticism, which proves the previous point about fear of negative criticism, not just criticism. In design education, offering feedback is how we teach in crits as well as tutorials. They are the checkpoints where we have a look on your progress. What you also learn in crits and tutorials then is how to examine a creation and understand the criteria that make it work. So the dialogue you have in a crit or a tutorial with your tutor is an example of the dialogue you learn to have with yourself in your own design process. When you hear comments and questions from your tutors then, it's the comments and the questions you learn to consider for yourself when you create. You learn to be critical, which is why I still prefer to call it the crit, because it's all about critical thinking and being critical. Now, if criticism is what you receive in both tutorials and crits, what's the big deal with the crits? I mean, surely as much as a bad crit, you may have a bad tutorial, which can send you straight back to the drawing board, literally. So what's the difference to a tutorial? Which brings me to the second main reason why crits have such a low contribution rate from students in the audience. I understand that the dynamics in a crit compared to a tutorial change a lot. If you are the student presenting, the tutor who is next to you in a tutorial is suddenly opposite to you, together with one or two critics and a bunch of your course mates as an audience. If you are one of those students in the audience, then you are now part of an evaluation process. And that is exactly the reason. The only difference in the dialogue you have in a tutorial is that the one in a crit also involves evaluation. Your feedback is also translated into a mark. The fact that this is an evaluation process makes you think that it is not part of your design process, but an isolated educational condition where you shouldn't necessarily contribute, since it is your tutors that mark and not you. There is a behavioral pattern that happens usually in the first couple of undergraduate years and proves this mentality. You may notice, some students, or yourself, that at the end of a crit, they will go and sit in the audience, but at the back or around the edges. This is something that communicates, I'm done now. I finished my presentation, I got my feedback, and I will sit back and watch the rest. The crit is not an isolated event, but part of this evaluation process that you also have in a tutorial, and it's continuous in your learning. It is an educational event where you have the opportunity to practice this evaluation process together with your teachers and your course mates. In part 2, I will show you how you can do a lot more than keeping notes and expressing positive comments. I will show you how you can turn what seems to be an intimidating process of evaluation to a vivid conversation, where you are part in it as a protagonist, an active participant in your education. I hope you found this video useful, and I'm looking forward to reading your thoughts and concerns about the crit in the comment section. If you need help with your work, I do tutorials on architectural design through Skype. Let me know by using the email provided in the description below. Thank you for watching, and take care.